This is Research Like a Pro, episode 54, 3 Ways to Chart Your DNA Matches. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Nicole Dyer, co-host of the Research Like a Pro genealogy podcast. I'm here with accredited genealogist Diana Elder. Hi, Diana, what's new?
Hi, Nicole. I'm just happy to be here today and talking about some more fun DNA stuff.
We are also here with Robin Wirthlin, our genetic genealogist. Hi, Robin.
Hi, so excited to be here today.
We are loving having you as part of our podcast now. And before we start talking about our subject today, I'm going to read our review. Our listener spotlight today is from Lori. I just listened to this episode and found it so helpful. I've been dabbling in genealogy for 25 years on and off. I have a wealth of information and documents on Ancestry, in Family Tree Maker, and in a few folders, binders, and a box. I could not formulate a plan of organization. With a few notes and this podcast, I know exactly what I need to do. Thank you. So this was a review left on our episode all about organization, which is interesting because today we're also talking about organization, but a little bit of a different take on it. We're talking about organizing your DNA matches. So Diana, why don't you introduce us to this new series that we're starting and tell us about what's happening?
All right. As everyone who's been listening to this podcast knows, we really love giving steps to accomplish good things in our research, which is why we wrote Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide, and gave researchers specific steps. And we want to do the same thing with DNA. Give everyone out there who's trying to do DNA along with their regular research or traditional research, some specific steps to take. I know that I have felt very confused and not known what to do with my DNA results and kind of bounced around between trying this tool or that tool and, not felt organized at all with it. And so that is what we're going to be starting to work on and to teach. And we're pretty excited about that. So today we're going to be talking about charting DNA matches and visualizing our matches through some fun different programs. So we've got Robin, who is going to give us some great ideas. I have played around a little bit with this, so I'll be sharing one of the methods that I used. But today we're going to do 3 ways to chart your DNA matches. So Robin, why don't you get us started?
So after you've identified some of your DNA matches, it's really important to see the big picture of how they're connected to you and which common ancestors you share. Especially for people who are visual learners, it's great to have a chart that you can look at. But for anyone, especially if you have someone that you're collaborating with, this can help give a quick way to help people see where you're at and where you need to go with your research. We're going to talk about these different charting programs. 2 that we've used are lucidchart and mindmap. So Nicole, you want to talk about lucidchart?
I love lucidchart. You taught me all about it. I remember the first time I asked you for help with a project that I was doing, and you said, well, we've got to see what we have already. So you helped me draw a lucidchart diagram, which was basically a vertical pedigree family tree with just some of the DNA matches that I had that related to the research question, and just showing how they related back to a common ancestor. Let me just tell you what lucidchart is. It's a web-based software, and it allows you to draw a pedigree chart, and you use shapes and connecting lines to illustrate what you're trying to show. And what we recommend you use lucidchart to do is to create basically a pedigree chart. Other people use lucidchart for all kinds of other things, to create diagrams or flow charts and that kind of thing, org charts. But for this, it's a pedigree chart. And you show how people in your DNA match list are related to you through common ancestors. So it's pretty simple to get started. It's kind of just like dragging and dropping shapes you grab a rectangle and drag it over to your drawing board, and then you type the name of the person in, and then you can copy that one and paste another one next to it, and then type a new name into that one, and then add a connecting line. And you can draw a pedigree that's just a direct line back to one ancestor that you're trying to learn more about or test a hypothesis of a relationship to. After you draw those lines, then you can see how everyone's related from that common ancestor. So it's a great way to really see everything visually. After you add in all the lines, you can change some of the lines to be solid or dotted lines. So I like to use a dotted line when I'm showing a hypothesized relationship so that I remember that this isn't proven yet. There's typically arrows on the end of each line when you first start out, but you can change that so that there's no arrow and that the default will have no arrow. So I always choose that there's no arrows at the end of my lines. You can also fill the shapes with colors. So I like to use the colors to show which company the DNA match is from. So in a recent Lucid chart that I built for a case, I had some matches from MyHeritage and some from Ancestry and some from Family Tree DNA. So I gave each match company a different color. So for the matches from MyHeritage, I did those ones orange. And for the matches from Ancestry, I think I did those pink. And that just helped me to remember where they came from. But you could do any kind of color coding that helps you. You can color code an entire line blue if you think that's the line where you need to do more research or whatever you want to do. But it is helpful, I think, to be able to use the color coding. One of the great things about Lucid Chart is that you can edit things so easily and move things around. So one of the things you might want to do is to add all of your shapes for the people you have first and then add the lines after, making it easy to move things around. And I've also noticed that it is pretty easy, even after you've added the lines, to move a whole block of people over and add in another line going down. So it might seem difficult to picture what we're saying. So make sure you go over to Robin's blog post about this. And we put the link to that in the show notes. It's called Seeing the Big Picture, 3 Ways to Chart Your DNA Matches. And she has an example there that you can see. I think everybody should try Lucid Chart when you're using DNA matches and trying to find out how you're all related to a common ancestor, because I think it's so easy. It's just so helpful.
Thanks, Nicole. I really love Lucid Chart. One of the reasons why is because I can just put in the people who share DNA with the target individual. And that way, even if there's a lot of people in the family, I can focus in on the DNA matches. I also sometimes put in without a color box, the other people in the family, so I can know that they're there, but it just streamlines it.
Yeah, I agree that Lucid Chart, when I first tried it, just lit up my imagination because it shows so clearly how everyone was related. I am working on a really complicated DNA adoption case right now where I don't know which side is maternal or which side is paternal, and trying to make sense of all of these different matches and their family trees and how they connect. I don't think there's any way I could make sense of this unless I had it in a chart. So thank you, Robin, for teaching Nicole and I how to use Lucid Chart, because it honestly has been so much fun. I do want to mention that it does have a fee. And so if you don't want to pay the fee, then do a Google search for free Lucid Chart options, because there are free programs out there that do much the same thing that are for free. And I realize that not everybody wants to spend money on different types of programs. Now, with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about MindMap, which is what I was using back before I really knew about Lucid Chart to do my sister's adoptee case. MindMap is also a charting program. It's just a little bit different. It's a mind mapping program, and it lets you do much the same thing to draw little boxes, type text in them, and connect them with lines. The only thing is that it doesn't line up quite as nicely as Lucid Chart, and so my MindMap charting program, the mind map I made from that, doesn't look quite as nice and neat as my Lucid charts that I do now. But with that said, MindMap is a free mind mapping program. And there are lots of mind mapping programs out there that some of you listening might have already been trying those for your genealogy. And so you certainly could use that for your DNA. So when I did my sister's adoption case, hers was kind of fun because we had already found her mother's maternal, her biological mother. And so I was able to take all of the maternal line completely out of her results, which, as you know, would be super helpful. And all we were left with were the paternal lines, which separated themselves out so nice and neatly because she had a very strong Finnish ethnicity line, and it was really easy to see which matches were on the Finnish side. Knowing that all of these different matches were from this certain Finnish family, I was able to take the other people that weren't in the Finnish side and weren't in the mother's side and try to figure them out. And I put them all into mind map, and it worked really well. I used color coding, just like Nicole said, on the Lucid chart, because color coding helps you to see, some family lines. I actually used it for family lines. All the children of a couple got a color and that type of a thing that helped me to visualize things. So whatever you decide to do, visualizing these matches can really, really help you wrap your mind around what's going on with your DNA.
Yes, I loved your mind map that you created with that program. The color coding was really helpful to see the different groups in the family. So that's a helpful tool. And I feel like Lucid chart is kind of more of a straight up and down thing, the way that I've used it. And then mind mapping with mind mup, it's kind of a tongue twister. It doesn't allow you to put things exactly where you want them sometimes. So it does have that limitation, but it does have more of a mind map look to it where the pieces come out from a central node and they kind of go around it. So just keep that in mind, that with mind mapping, that's kind of a difference there. Now, I forgot to mention that when I did the Lucid chart, and Robin recommends this also, that you put the amount of DNA that you share with that match into your Lucid chart. But that is, I think, a really useful thing to do as well when you're doing these diagrams and charting your matches, just to show at a glance that you share 55 centimorgans with this person over 2 segments or whatever. And I've even seen it done on other people's charts where they just put, 50/2 to mean 50 centimorgans shared across 2 segments. So you can do whatever works for you and maybe put a key there. But I think it's important to include that amount of centimorgans that is shared with that match when you're charting it.
The thing is that when you're working on a complicated project, you can't do it all in one day. And you need to be able to come back and refresh your mind and see how closely connected the people are. The other advantage of that is that you can have someone else look at your chart and see if you're missing something and see if they catch something that you've overlooked. One cool thing about Lucid chart is that you can share that with someone else and they can update and you can update in real time so that people see what's going on as changes are made.
One of the things that I have done and that you taught us, Robin, was to also put in the hypothesized relationship. So when you see that, you can say, oh, this is a second cousin once removed. And using the shared centimorgan tool, you can see if the centimorgans match up with that hypothesized relationship. That has been very, very helpful, especially in this adoptee case, to see if we're putting things together in the correct way. So it's been really fun because my husband's been helping me do the research on this, and he's using a research log, a kind of a Google sheet to map this out. And then I'm putting it into Lucid chart. And so he will come and look at my screen and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because his spreadsheet just doesn't show it quite as well as my Lucid chart. So, 2 different ways of looking at data, but he still likes to come look at my chart.
That's interesting because in the past, we've organized our DNA matches in spreadsheets. And I know a lot of people do that. And there's still a lot of use for that. But there's just something about diagramming the matches that just makes it so much more accessible to my brain and to the problem that I'm working on. It really takes it to the next level, your analysis. And I think it's kind of like similar to, when we're doing family history research and we have to really focus in on one person and their movements and migration. And so we make a timeline. That really helps get my thoughts organized about that person. But with genetic genealogy, we're using so much data from so many different people that we really need to put it into a family tree or a pedigree chart that we can really visualize well. The beauty of the mind map or Lucid chart is that you can just focus in on those individuals who are a DNA match to you and their direct line back to the common ancestor.
Those boxes are so flexible, or the shapes that you choose to use. You can put location, you can put the dates that a person lived, you put the amount of centimorgans. If somebody's tested at more than one company, you can put that information, that they share this much in one company and this much in another company. And one last point that I wanted to make was when you share an amount of DNA, there are multiple relationships that are supported by that amount of DNA. And so sometimes you may think that somebody is closer relation than they really are. You've got to look at that whole big picture and see how that person relates to other people in the chart as well, so that you can make sure you put them in as a first cousin or a second cousin once removed. The charting is great because you can move the people around as you get more data, and you can really solidify which relationship they are to the target testing person.
Right. And that was very helpful in this adoptee case we're doing, because we had sort of zeroed in on a potential biological father. But when we mapped out another DNA match, it was absolutely clear that this gentleman could not have been the father. It was so interesting. It just sprang out from the screen. No, that line does not match with the other matches. I don't know that we would have figured that out any other way than just drawing it out and seeing it there on the screen. Robin, you're going to talk to us a little bit about how we could just use a regular tree, right?
Yes, Ancestry has a great tree building program. It's really fantastic. You can use their tree building program to chart out your DNA matches. You could work in your current family tree, but I recommend starting a new genetic family tree. Name it something that's different, and make sure that it is private and unsearchable. And in the blog post, it explains exactly how to do that. The reason why you want it to be private is so the Ancestry doesn't suggest that tree to someone, and maybe you have some hypothesized people in there. You don't want it to be copied erroneously. So you start with yourself or the person that you're helping as the anchor person in the pedigree, and add in parents and grandparents. Ancestry can give hints on new people, and you want to be very diligent and make sure that those people are truly related with good, verifiable genealogical records. You can continue building that tree and finding common ancestors with the people that you share DNA with. Some tips on being able to identify the DNA matches is make sure that you mark the person as living when you add them into your tree so that they're private. And then add the amount of centimorgans of DNA that you share with the DNA match into the suffix box. The place where you would put junior, senior, or the third. You can also add a DNA graphic to the profile photo of your DNA matches to help easily identify them. And there are detailed instructions in the blog post on how to do that. That's pretty neat, because then you can quickly say, oh, this person has taken a DNA test, and I can use them to compare to other people. So the advantage to this type of chart is that it includes all the features of the Ancestry.com family trees, and you can work in the same website with your DNA matches. You're not going to a different website. You can also add in information from other DNA testing companies into the notes and the suffix portion of the profile. You could also add in a match. Let's say you took a test on 23andMe. You could add that person if you know where they fit into your family tree. I love the Ancestry family trees. I've got several of them for people that I've helped, and I think it's a great way of quickly building trees. Sometimes you want to work very quickly, and people call those quick and dirty trees, but you also must be very conscious of the verifiable connections, because you don't want to add the wrong person to your tree and then you'll be chasing after nothing. So make sure that the people truly belong in the family when you add them.
And I can verify that because as we're working on this case that my husband and I are doing together, he had a very common name. I think it was Charlie Wilson or something, and had started building the wrong branch and things were not working. So yeah, it is so important to be careful of that. I can testify to that. Well, I love this idea. Now, I have a question. So I'm obviously working on a case, but if someone listening just wants to work with their own results, I just want to verify this. And they already have a tree on Ancestry. You would recommend, Robin, that they start a second tree that's just their DNA tree, correct?
I recommend it because if they are trying to find common ancestors between, let's say they have a brick wall at the end of a genealogical line, this new tree can help you to more quickly see who the common ancestors are. And that being said, it's not a wrong thing to add them to your regular tree. It's just that you must make sure that those people who are your DNA matches are marked as living and not deceased, so that they don't show up in your tree, because that's not fair to the matches that feel like their information they've been guaranteed some privacy. And if you put it in your public tree, then that's not ethical.
That's a really good point to think about. Do they let you keep everyone private who doesn't have a death date? Is that how it is?
I think when you add the person in, the default is living, and you have to click the little circle that says deceased.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And so their default is that they're living. You just want to be careful because you want to be honest and ethical about this. Just be aware of what you're doing.
For sure. I love the idea of putting in the little DNA image for people who are a confirmed DNA match to you. Have you seen people also putting in DNA images for their ancestors who they have proven a DNA link to?
I haven't personally seen it, but I think that's a fabulous idea because it would identify a common ancestor. I love that.
Well, I know they have the new tree tags on Ancestry, and those could be used. In fact, they have some suggested tree tags, and one of those, I believe, is the DNA tag that shows up right there on your tree. So Ancestry is trying to help us. I have to give them kudos for trying to help us to organize our matches if we want to just work with our trees. So I really like the idea of doing a second DNA tree. I think I want to try that out with maybe my Cox project. That's the one I'm trying to figure out. And on that one, I have a lot of matches showing up on through lines that I'm trying to explore and verify. And so that might be the perfect way to do it, is through a second special DNA tree.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense that you would want to do it, especially if you're having to prove a lot of lines back to that common ancestor. Why wouldn't you want to take advantage of Ancestry's hints and be able to build that connection and prove those links a little bit easier through using Ancestry's really helpful tree tools?
One other really neat thing that Ancestry just added is a suggested common ancestor between you and your DNA match if they have a tree posted. And that is something that people spend a lot of time trying to identify the common ancestor. So if they can give a tip and you can look and see if that's truly verifiable, it's really wonderful.
I've been playing around with that a little bit. Here's my problem. I just get so involved in playing with DNA that I forget to go do other things like make dinner, I could spend all day playing in the DNA sandbox because these tools make it so fun. So I have to really discipline myself and say, okay, you only have 1 hour to play with this and do this.
Good point.
Okay, well, let's move on to our final way here. And I love this one because, quite honestly, I tend to do this still, even with all of the technology that we have, and that's good old paper and pencil. So, Robin, fill us in on some fun ways of just using low tech.
I like this one a lot because it doesn't take extra technology. It doesn't take knowing a lot of extra information. You get a piece of paper and use a pencil so that you can erase things. And then start by drawing a shape that's large enough to add the names, the amount of shared DNA, and the testing company. And then you can draw the lines to connect people, as in a traditional pedigree. I like to use a vertical pedigree because it makes sense to me as we're going up in time. That's the low-tech way to do it. You can tape different pieces of paper together. You could tape it on your wall, but it's a great way for anybody to be able to chart their matches. And another thing that I've done is I've put sticky notes on the wall with the names of DNA matches. There's a picture in my blog post. This was the very first DNA project that I did, and it was a tough one. It was from a branch of my family where my great-grandparents died young, and so I didn't even know who the different siblings were. So I needed those notes to be able to move them around and add people to them. It's a great way. In fact, I have a newly found cousin who I really love, and his biological family had a family reunion, and they had put a tree up on the wall, and they added him to the tree so that he was absolutely included in the family. And it reminded me of this method. The great advantage is it's easy to access. There's no extra programs to learn, and you can arrange it any way you like.
I really like that idea of sticky notes because the only problem with paper and pencil is the erasing and rearranging, which can drive you crazy. But if you have sticky notes, that makes it a lot easier. So that's kind of a cool idea, especially if you don't know how people connect, like in an adoptee case, and you don't know quite where everything's coming from. So thank you for that. That was really revolutionary when you shared that in the blog post because I had never thought of doing that. In fact, I'm thinking that would even help in my traditional research when I use my whiteboard. A lot of times I'm trying to figure out families from their records, like tax records or probate, and put families together. And sticky notes maybe would be better on my whiteboard than drawing it out. I love new ideas for working with this stuff.
All right. Well, we've talked today about so many great ways to chart and organize your DNA matches. Let's just review. So first, we talked about 2 different online charting programs, lucidchart and MindMap. Then we talked about a second way to chart your DNA matches, which is using an ancestry tree. Then the third thing we talked about was using paper and pencil or sticky notes to chart your DNA matches. In conclusion, you should try making a diagram to chart your DNA matches and try out one of these ways and let us know what you think. And we hope you guys had a great time today. We did, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Good luck with your DNA charting.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro